My ex-girlfriend, the one who ended things between us, called me her boyfriend in front of her entire family. And I just sat there and went along with it. Let me back up. We had ended things 8 months earlier. Not with a fight. Not with tears thrown across a room or words said that could never be taken back. It ended quietly, the way a fire goes out when there is nothing left to burn. Sophia had been honest with me. She was not ready. She did not want the same things at the same pace. She cared about me, she said, which somehow made it hurt more than if she had not. I believed her. I still believe her. And because I believed her, I never really stopped loving her either. I just learned to carry it quietly, the way you carry something heavy when you know there is nowhere to put it down. So when her name appeared on my phone on an ordinary rainy Thursday evening, I stood in the parking lot of my office building for a full 30 seconds before I answered the call. Her voice came through like she had been rehearsing it. Calm, controlled, too casual to be real. Come over for dinner tonight, she said. I'm cooking. That was it. No context. No, are you free, or is this okay, or I know this might be strange. Just the assumption, dropped into my evening like a stone into still water, that I would come. That the answer would be yes. That 8 months of silence could be folded up and set aside the way you fold a jacket over a chair when you walk through the door. I said, okay. I'll be there, before I could talk myself out of it. I told myself it was just dinner. I told myself I was over her. I told myself a lot of things standing in that parking lot in the drizzle, and I believed none of them. The drive across town took longer than it should have. The rain had thickened and the traffic moved the way traffic moves when no one is in a hurry except the person behind the wheel who needs the drive to end before they change their mind. I turned the radio off after 2 songs. I needed the quiet. I needed to think. Or maybe I needed to stop thinking, which is not something quiet actually helps with, but you try it anyway. Sophia lived in a corner apartment on the calmer side of the city. Old brick building, high ceilings, tall windows that turned gold in the evenings when the light came through at the right angle. I had spent a lot of time in that apartment. I knew which step on the staircase creaked. I knew she kept spare keys under the left side of the mat and had done so since the day she moved in, despite every reasonable argument against it. I knew she cooked when she was stressed and that garlic hit the pan first always, before anything else, before she even decided what she was making. I could smell it from the hallway. Garlic. Butter. Something bright underneath it all, like lemon or white wine. My stomach answered before I knocked. She opened the door almost immediately. She must have been close to it. Sophia stood there in dark jeans and a soft gray knit sweater, barefoot on the hardwood floor, hair loose around her shoulders, no blazer, no polish, nothing pressed or performed. Just her, exactly her, in the way she only ever was when she was not thinking about being watched. She looked up at me and smiled. A real smile, the kind that started somewhere behind her eyes before it reached her mouth. But there was something underneath it, something held carefully in place, something she was not ready to say yet. Hey, she said. Nathan. I stepped inside. The warmth of the apartment reached me immediately, and then the voices did. They came from deeper inside, from the direction of the dining room. Low, unhurried voices. A man and a woman talking the way people talk when they are completely comfortable somewhere. When they belong there. I stopped just past the entry mat. I turned and looked at her. You did not say you had company, I said. Her hand came up and touched my arm. Just lightly. Just for a second. I needed you to actually show up, she said. Her voice had dropped. She was not whispering, but she was being careful. If I had told you everything, you would have made an excuse. I frowned. Everything? What does that mean? What is going on, Sophia? She opened her mouth. But before she could answer, a woman's voice came floating down the hallway from the dining room, warm and carrying. Sophia, sweetheart, your father says the food is going to get cold. I watched Sophia's face do something complicated. A quick tightening in her jaw, there and gone in less than a second. Then she smoothed it back into calm, the way someone smooths a wrinkle out of a tablecloth before guests sit down. She looked up at me, and what was in her eyes was not quite an apology. But it was close to one. Please, she said quietly, just walk with me. I will explain everything. But not here. Every sensible part of me knew I should have turned around. I want to be honest about that. I had my jacket half off my shoulder and my keys still in my hand, and the door was right behind me, and the rain was still falling outside, and any reasonable person would have said not tonight, would have squeezed her hand and told her to call him tomorrow, would have walked back down that creaking staircase and driven home with both hands on the wheel and not looked back. But she was Sophia, and there was something in her eyes I had never seen there before. Something small and frightened that she was covering with both hands and hoping I would not notice. I noticed, so I walked with her. The dining room was the kind of room that tells you everything about a family without a single word being spoken. Long oak table, cloth napkins folded into clean rectangles, real candles in short glass holders, not the battery kind people buy when they want the effect without the effort. A large painting of a mountain lake hung above the sideboard, calm water, early morning light, the kind of image that costs more than it looks like it should. Everything in the room had been chosen with care. Everything had been in its place for a very long time. Two people sat at the far end of the table. Her father I recognized before Sophia said a word. Richard Calloway. I had seen a photograph of him once on her phone from some family event 2 years back. Broad shoulders even now. Silver at the temples. The face of a man who had learned a long time ago to show very little on purpose. He was watching me the way I imagined he watched people who came to him asking for something, measuring, comparing, deciding where they fit and whether they mattered. The woman beside him I had never met, but I knew who she was the second she looked up. Same sharp focus in the eyes as Sophia. Same composed set to the jaw. Same cheekbones. Eleanor Calloway had clearly spent many years deciding exactly how much of herself she showed to rooms full of people. Where Sophia's expressions moved quickly, her mother's face was still, controlled. A calm that was not relaxed but practiced. Both of them looked at me at precisely the same moment. Sophia's voice came out bright and deliberate. "Mom, Dad, I want you to meet someone." And then her hand found mine at her side. Not a casual touch. Not an accident. A decision. Her fingers laced through mine slowly and held. "This is Nathan," she said. She took one small breath. "He is my boyfriend." The word hit the room like something dropped from a height onto a hard floor. Richard's fork paused halfway to his plate and stayed there. Eleanor's eyes moved over me in one long, smooth, unhurried sweep, taking in the work jacket, the plain shirt, the face of someone who had arrived without expecting any of this. I felt the full weight of both of them looking, and finding me smaller than whatever they had imagined. My heart was going hard against my ribs. My brain was running through every exit in the room. I could have laughed it off. I could have said something like, "She is joking, you know how she is," and given all of us a way out. I could have made it easy. Instead, I pulled out the chair beside her and sat down like I had been sitting there for years. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Calloway," I said. "Thank you for having me." There was a pause. A beat where the room took a breath and decided what it was going to do with itself. Then Richard set his fork down, picked up his napkin and said, "What do you do for work?" "Nathan?" "Architect," I said. "I run a small firm. We mostly handle commercial builds, but we have been taking on more residential work in the last year." He nodded once, still reading me, still filing. It was not a warm nod. It was the kind of nod a man gives when he is not finished deciding something. Dinner arrived, and with it came the questions. Richard asked them in a tone that never changed, never softened, never rose or fell. Each one landed like something placed deliberately on a table. Where had I grown up? What did my parents do for work? Had I always wanted to go into architecture, or had something else come first? I answered him straight because I had nothing to hide and nowhere to hide it even if I did. Mid-sized city, about 4 hours from here. My father had spent his career in transport logistics, long hours, modest pay. A man who measured success in whether his kids had more options than he did. My mother had taught middle school for 19 years and had the patience of someone who had genuinely chosen their life and was not just living it by accident. And yes, I was the first in my family to run my own business. No, I had not planned it. I had always been good at understanding how things fit together, structures, spaces, the logic of how a building stands up or falls down. I followed that instinct until it became something real. Richard's mouth moved in a small, controlled way when I finished. like he had expected exactly that answer and had already placed it somewhere in his mind before I was done speaking. Eleanor asked softer questions, but they pressed on different walls. How long had Sophia and I known each other? How had we met? Did I see myself staying in the city long term, or was I the kind of person who kept moving toward the next thing? She smiled the entire time she asked, which somehow made it worse. A smile that was doing a job. A smile with no warmth underneath it, just function. Under the table, Sophia's knee stayed pressed against mine through all of it. When she needed both hands to cut her food, she moved her foot beside mine instead. She was keeping contact on purpose. A small quiet signal that she had not forgotten I was there, that she was not going to leave me out there alone. I noticed, and it steadied me more than I expected. Toward the end of the meal, Eleanor said something that made the air in the room shift just slightly. "We had hoped you might bring Daniel this time," she said to Sophia, with her eyes drifting toward me in a way that was not quite casual. "Daniel Mercer has been so involved with everything this quarter. Your father and he have been talking quite a lot." I did not know who Daniel Mercer was yet, but I saw what the name did to Sophia's jaw. The smallest, quickest tightening. There and gone. "Daniel is a colleague," Sophia said. "Nathan is my boyfriend." She said it the second time with more weight than the first. Like a line she was pressing into the table. Not a performance. Something she was making real by saying it out loud. Dinner ended slowly the way long, careful meals always do. Eleanor cleared plates with a practiced efficiency that left no room for lingering. Richard refilled his water glass and said nothing and stared at the middle of the table like a man doing math in his head that he had not shared with anyone else. And I sat there beside Sophia in her parents' dining room, holding the hand of the woman who had told me 8 months ago that she was not ready, wondering what exactly I had walked into, and whether I was about to find out. I did not have to wait long. Later, after the plates had been moved and the candles had burned lower, Sophia stood and offered to help with dessert. She glanced at me with a look I had learned to read 2 years ago, a look that said, "Follow me quietly now." I excused myself a moment later. She was waiting for me in the narrow pantry just off the kitchen. Cinnamon and dried herbs in the air. Barely enough room for both of us to stand. She shut the door behind me and reached into the pocket of her sweater and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She pressed it into my hands. "Read that later," she said. "But here is what it says in plain words." She looked straight at me. No performance now. Just her, tired and honest. "My father has been pushing me toward Daniel Mercer for months. He is a business partner of my father's, and he has been working his way into the company I helped build from the ground floor. And now there is a gala coming up, a big family and investor event, and my parents want me to arrive with Daniel. Publicly, in front of everyone who matters to the business. And if I refuse," she paused, "my father has made it clear that my shares, my voting rights, everything I have built my name onto inside that company, gets moved into a trust. One that he and Daniel control together." The pantry was very quiet. I looked down at the paper in my hands and then back up at her. "I know this is not fair," she said. "And I know I lied to get you here tonight. If you want to leave right now, I will understand it completely. But if you stay, even just for tonight, I need you to be exactly what I told them you are." The candles were still burning in the dining room. I could hear the low sound of her parents talking and the soft clink of a cup being set down. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said the only thing I actually meant. "I am not leaving." She stared at me like she was waiting for me to take it back. Like she had prepared herself for a different answer and did not know what to do with this one. I did not take it back. But I needed one thing from her before we went any further. "Tell me what you actually want," I said. "Not what you are afraid of losing. What do you want?" She did not answer right away. She leaned back against the pantry shelf with her arms folded across her chest and her eyes on the floor. Something worked quietly in her jaw. The composed version of her, the one that had sat straight through that entire dinner, was completely gone. When she finally looked up, she looked like herself. "I want my life back," she said. "My own decisions. My own name on my own work. I have given years to that company, and somehow I am standing in a pantry trying to convince my own parents not to hand pieces of it to a man I have never trusted. and I have been so afraid of losing everything that I did not know how to say no. So I called the one person I knew would show up. She stopped. That was enough for me. We walked back into the dining room together, her fingers in mine, and finished the evening. I watched her through the rest of it. She sat straight. She answered her mother's questions with patience. She did not flinch when Daniel's name came up a second time, and did not explain herself when she moved the conversation somewhere else. There was something different in her now, a steadiness that had not been there before we stepped into that pantry. Like she had made a decision, and the decision had given her something solid under her feet. I had walked into this evening expecting dinner. What I found was something I did not have a word for yet. But I was not leaving until I did. Richard eventually set his coffee cup down and looked at Sophia across the table. "Have you thought seriously about the gala?" he said. "About what it says if things remain unclear going in?" Sophia set her own cup down with a quiet, clean click. "I have thought about it every day since the conversation first landed on my desk," she said. "I have thought about the investors and the image and the timing of everything. And what I know is that I will not tie my name to a man just to make an evening look a certain way." The room went still. I spoke before I fully decided to. "If the only way to hold things together is to put an approved name beside hers," I said, looking at Richard steadily, "then whatever is holding things together was never as strong as it looked." Richard's eyes moved to me, sharp, unreadable. Eleanor lifted her napkin and pressed it once to the corner of her mouth. "We will not discuss the business at the table," she said. Polished, final. But something had shifted. I could feel it in the room the way you feel weather before it arrives. The angle of things had changed. Not dramatically, not with any announcement. Just enough that the air felt different than it had an hour ago. Richard refilled his glass without speaking. He did not look at his wife. He looked at the middle of the table like a man who had just found something in a familiar room that he had not put there and could not yet explain. And I sat beside Sophia, her hand warm in mine under the table, knowing that whatever was coming next, we were walking into it together. The document she had pressed into my hands in that pantry was still folded in my jacket pocket. I had not read it yet, but I already knew it was going to matter, and that the evening was nowhere close to over. The drive home was quiet in the way that feels heavy. Rain had replaced the drizzle. The streets were dark and mostly empty. I waited until I was parked under a streetlight outside my building before I unfolded the paper. It was a formal document. Clean language, precise wording, the kind that reads smoothly until you hit the part that is meant to go unnoticed. Near the bottom, after 3 paragraphs of careful legal writing, there was a clause that made my stomach go cold. In the event that Sophia Calloway is unable or unwilling to publicly commit to an approved partner before the date of the family gala, her voting shares would transfer temporarily to a joint trust administered by Richard Calloway and senior business partner Daniel Mercer. I read it twice, then a third time. This was not a family preference. This was not a father expressing disappointment over a dinner table. Someone had built a legal trap inside a business document and aimed it directly at her. My phone buzzed on the seat beside me. Unknown number. For words on the screen. "We should talk, Nathan." I stared at it. The timing was not a coincidence. Someone had either been watching the evening from a distance or had known exactly what I had just finished reading. I did not reply. I locked the phone and sat in the dark car for a long time, listening to the rain. I did not sleep much that night. I lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling and thought about the clause buried in that document. I thought about Richard at the dinner table, careful and measured but not unkind. I thought about Eleanor watching everything with those still recording eyes. And I thought about Sophia in that narrow pantry, pressing that paper into my hands like it weighed more than paper should. I was at my office before the sun came up. The building was half empty at that hour. Just the hum of computers and the soft sound of someone vacuuming 2 floors below. I spread out at my desk with a coffee going cold beside me, and I opened every file my clearance allowed. Not looking for anything dramatic. Just trying to understand what I was actually standing in the middle of. Daniel Mercer arrived in my office doorway at 5 minutes to 8. I did not hear him coming. One moment the doorway was empty and then he was there. Dark suit, precise, hair without a strand out of place. The kind of man who always looked like he had just come from somewhere important and was on his way to somewhere more important still. He stepped inside without being invited and sat on the edge of my desk with an ease that was designed to remind me it was not really my desk at all. "Morning, Nathan," he said. "Morning," I said. He smiled. It happened only in his mouth. "I heard you had dinner with the Callaways last night," he said. "Looked like a nice evening." He let that sit between us. So he had been watching. That explained the text. I said nothing. He tilted his head slightly. "Sophia is a key part of something very sensitive right now," he said. "Her choices, all of them, including the personal ones, affect how people read the situation. You understand that?" "You mean you want to decide who she spends her time with?" I said. He kept the smile in place. "I want what is best for everyone involved," he said. "And what is best right now is a clear, stable picture going into the gala." He leaned forward just slightly. "Walk away from this, Nathan. Whatever is happening with Sophia, end it. Do that and everything stays simple. Your firm keeps it standing. Your name stays clean. You keep building toward everything you have been working toward." He paused. "You are a smart man. You know how to read a room. And if I do not walk away," I said. His expression did not change. "Then you become a complication," he said. "And complications have a way of resolving themselves. I will not need to do a thing. These situations tend to sort themselves out on their own." I looked at him. His tie was straight. His cufflinks caught the morning light. He had rehearsed this or something close to it more than once. "I have been going through the project files," I said. "The off-site meetings with no reports filed. The consultant fees tied to accounts the board never formally approved. The timeline of when certain contract language appeared and when it did not." Something moved in his face. Not much. Just a flicker at the edges. "Be very careful," he said. His voice had lost its warmth. "You used her name to explain gaps that were yours," I said. "You pointed at her division when the numbers did not add up, and you used the idea of her instability to justify taking control of decisions that were never yours to make." He stood up from the desk. "You do not have the full picture," he said. "What you have is loyalty to someone and a seat at a table you were not invited to." He straightened his jacket. "Think carefully before tonight." He walked out. The door swung shut behind him with a soft, deliberate click. I sat still for a full minute. I was not angry. Anger costs energy you need for other things. I was focused. There is a real difference between those two things, and I had learned it the hard way over the years. I spent the rest of the morning going through every document I could access. Advisory fees next to his name on dates that matched no approved project. Side agreements with approval codes that had expired months before they were used. Hotel bookings under the category of offsite strategy with no attendees listed. No notes filed. No outcomes reported anywhere. And on the same days in the internal ledger, numbers that moved in ways the external reports never acknowledged. He was not even being subtle about it. He was just used to no one looking. Sophia messaged me at noon. 4th floor conference room. Bring lunch. She was already there when I arrived. Suit on. Hair in a sharp twist. Papers spread across the small table in front of her. Snow had started falling outside the window, fine and light against the gray sky. She looked up when I walked in. "He came to see you this morning," she said. It was not a question. I pushed the folder across the table without answering. She flipped through it. Her eyes moved fast, the way they did when she was absorbing something she already half understood but needed to see written down before she could fully believe it. "He is not just managing me," she said slowly. "He has been lying to my father. He has been lying to investors. He has been building something on top of a version of this company that was never real." "Exactly," I said. "He is selling your father the idea of stability while hiding the thing that could bring all of it down." She sat back. Her fingers rested on the edge of the folder. "This is not enough on its own," she said. "Not for regulators. Not yet. But it might be enough to make my father stop and actually look." She glanced up at me. "Will you be there when I show him?" "I am already here," I said. "I am not going anywhere." She held my gaze for a moment. Then she nodded, picked up her pen, and we got to work. That evening I went back to her apartment. She had texted after our meeting. Come by at 6. I need to think somewhere the walls are not listening. I knocked instead of ringing the bell. She opened the door in leggings and an oversized university hoodie, hair in a quick knot. No polish, no performance. Just her. She looked younger than she did at the office. More tired, but more real. Come in, she said. I have coffee. The apartment felt completely different without her parents in it. Warmer, quieter. The dining room was dark. Only the kitchen and the small back sitting room were lit, with the kind of soft lamplight that makes everything look amber and close. She led me to the kitchen table. My folder from the afternoon was already there, open. Beside it was a second one I had not seen, thicker, with handwritten notes visible on the top page. I called my personal lawyer this morning, she said, sitting across from me and sliding it forward. Not the company's lawyer. Mine. I opened it. Her employment contract. Her share agreement. A full draft of the merger terms with notes in her small precise handwriting filling the margins. We found 3 more places where his language does not match what the board actually approved, she said. He has been slipping revisions through under pressure, and when the numbers shifted because of it, he pointed at my division. He used my name as the explanation for problems he created. So he has been building himself a safety net out of your reputation, I said. Yes. She folded her hands on the table. And he has been doing it for months, right in front of my father, who trusted him completely because he had no reason not to. Does your father know? Some version of it, she said. The version Daniel has been feeding him. She paused. My father is not a cruel man. He is just a man who got used to being told what the right move was and trusting that. Daniel has been the one doing the telling. We sat with that for a moment. Outside the kitchen window, the city settled into its night sounds. Distant traffic, wind moving through the gap between buildings, the occasional low sound of something far away. Then she looked straight at me. I have a plan, she said. Tell me, I said. I am going to let the story stand. I am going to bring you to the gala. We go together, publicly, and everyone sees that I have made a different choice and I am not ashamed of it. And then when my father and the board are all in the same room, when the evening is at its height and the numbers are about to be presented, I put everything on the table. All of it. In front of everyone. I thought about that. That is a lot resting on one night, I said. I know, she said. Which is why I am telling you now, clearly, before you agree to anything. She leaned forward slightly. This does not just risk my career, Nathan. It risks yours. If this goes wrong, Daniel will try to make you part of the story. People will ask questions about your judgment. Your name will get attached to a mess that was never yours. Future clients might hesitate. You could lose ground you have spent years building. I let her finish. She needed to say all of it. Then I said, I can live with starting over. What I cannot live with is watching someone like Daniel Mercer slowly carve his name into your future while you have to smile and act like that is just how things work. She looked at me for a long moment. Something moved through her expression. Something quiet and deep that she did not try to name out loud. You are sure? She said. Yes, I said. I am not here by accident, Sophia. I am here because I keep choosing to be. She stood up from the table. The kitchen felt smaller than it had a moment ago. She stepped around the corner of it, and now there were only a few inches of space between us. Nathan, she said. This time she did not stumble over it. She said it like she meant exactly that name. Exactly that person. She lifted her hand slowly and placed it flat against my chest. Just resting there. My heart pushed hard against her palm. I do not know how this ends, she said softly. I only know I do not want to walk into that gala without you beside me. I covered her hand with mine. Then you will not, I said. She exhaled slowly. Something in her settled. Not relief exactly. Something more permanent than relief. The kind of trust that has been building quietly for a long time and has only just been given a name. We spent the next hour going through the plan in detail. Who would approach us first? How to handle Richard? What to do if Daniel tried to intercept before the documents came out? We laid it out the way you lay out a map before a long drive. Careful, practical, honest about the parts where we did not know yet what to expect. But every time our hands crossed over the same page or our fingers touched reaching for the same pen, something in me noticed it. And I think she did too. By the time I stood to leave, it was past 9. She walked me to the door. The city outside was cold and quiet. Snow had started falling again, the slow, heavy kind that softens everything. At the door she stopped me. "Nathan," she said. "Yeah." "At the gala, when people ask how serious we are, what are you going to say?" I thought about it. "Not for long. I am going to say that I am not going anywhere unless you tell me to," I said. Her throat moved as she swallowed. She nodded, very small. "I am not going to tell you to go," she said. "Then we are serious," I said. She stood in the doorway with snow falling past the porch light. And for one moment I thought she was going to close the distance between us. Her hand lifted toward my face. Then she let it fall and stepped back. "Good night, Nathan," she said. Her voice was softer than it had been 2 hours ago, less careful. "Good night, Sophia," I said. My phone buzzed as I reached the bottom step. Same unknown number. Same pattern. 3 words this time. "See you there." I put the phone in my pocket and walked through the snow to my car. The gala was in 4 days, and I had a feeling Daniel Mercer had already decided how he wanted the evening to go. He was going to find out we had a different plan entirely. The night of the gala felt like the last quiet hour before a storm that has been building all week finally arrives. The hotel was one of those tall old buildings in the center of the city, the kind that has been standing long enough to feel like it was there before the rest of the city and will be there after. Marble floors in the lobby. Chandeliers that caught the light and broke it into 100 moving pieces. People moving through the space in dark suits and carefully chosen dresses. Voices low and practiced. Laughter rising and falling in a way that sounded polished rather than real. I straightened my tie in the lobby mirror and felt exactly like what I was. A man from an ordinary background, standing in a room that had not been designed with people like me in mind. The tuxedo fit well. Sophia had sent my measurements to the rental place herself, which was such a specific, thoughtful thing that I had not known what to do with it when she told me. I saw her at the top of the wide staircase before she saw me. She was wearing a deep green dress. Simple lines. Nothing that needed to announce itself. It fit her the way clothes fit people who are not thinking about being looked at. Her hair was half up, the rest falling soft past her shoulders. She stood at the top of those stairs like she had already made her decision about tonight and was simply waiting for it to begin. Then her eyes found mine at the bottom. Some of the tension in her face came loose. She walked down slowly. I met her at the last step. "You look like you belong here," I said. She tilted her head slightly. "So do you," she said. "Ready?" "No," I said. "Me neither," she said. Daniel laughed once. Short and thin. "This is nothing," he said. "A few printed pages and a story built around a personal grudge. You want to undo a business arrangement because your friend has feelings for someone she used to date." "This is not a story," Sophia said. "My lawyer reviewed every document. These are not opinions. These are contract changes you pushed through and then used my name to cover when the numbers did not hold." Richard set the last page down on the table. He looked at Daniel. "Is this true?" he said. Daniel spread his hands. He turned toward Eleanor and his voice went smooth and steady. The voice of someone who had talked his way through difficult rooms before. "Think about the exposure here," he said. "Think about what it looks like when this gets out. Daughter disrupts the company's biggest deal over a personal attachment. Father did not catch it. The board will not hold through that kind of headline. But we can still contain this right now if we move quickly together." He said it cleanly, calmly, and for one long second the room tilted slightly in his direction. Then Eleanor stepped forward. She moved between Daniel and Sophia with a quietness that stopped everyone cold. "Stop," she said. Daniel went still. So did everyone else. She did not look at him when she spoke next. She looked at Richard. "He has been managing us," she said, "not advising us. There is a difference. And I have been watching it for longer than I admitted to myself. I saw it at dinner on Thursday. I did not say it then. I am saying it now." "Margaret," Daniel started. "No," Eleanor said. "Not raised. Something harder than raised. You have been using our daughter's reputation as cover for your own mistakes. You have been pushing an arrangement we believed she wanted. And she has been trying to tell us for months that she did not. We were not listening to the right person. Her eyes moved to him finally. That is on us, she said. Not on her. Richard straightened. He looked at the folder one more time. Then he looked at Daniel. The internal team will go through every file tonight, he said. You will cooperate completely. If you resist, I will take that as my answer. Daniel's composure cracked then. Just at the edges. I spent years building the relationships that made this possible, he said. You would not have half of what you have without me. You built it on a version of this company that was not honest, I said. Sophia has been keeping the real work going while you rewrote the story around it. His eyes moved to me. His hand curled at his side. I did not step back. I moved forward slightly, enough to be between him and Sophia, hands loose, calm, letting him decide what he wanted to do with that. He decided nothing, because the door opened. The head of the company's compliance team came in with 2 senior people behind him. Richard spoke to them quietly for less than a minute. Then he turned to Daniel and said, "We are done here." Daniel left. The compliance team went with him. He did not come back into the ballroom. The room felt different after he was gone. Lighter in one way, heavier in another. Sophia sat down in one of the low chairs. Her hands shook slightly, just for a moment. She pressed them flat against her knees. "That just happened," she said. "Yeah," I said. I sat on the edge of the table in front of her so we were at the same level. Richard crossed the room and crouched down in front of his daughter, which was not something this man did easily. He rested one hand on her arm. "I was wrong," he said. The words came out slowly, like they had traveled a long way to get out. "We were listening to the wrong person, and I made you feel like you had to pretend inside your own family." He paused. "I am sorry for that." Sophia looked at him for a moment. She did not make it easy. She did not say it was fine or it was nothing because it was not those things yet. "Thank you," she said. "Just that." Gerald nodded. He straightened up. His eyes came to me. "You pushed back at my table," he said. "Most people sitting where you were would not have done that. Most people are not sitting next to someone worth pushing back for," I said. He held my gaze for a long moment. Then something moved in his face. Not warmth exactly, but something beginning to move in that direction. He picked up the folder and went to meet the compliance team. Eleanor came back into the room alone a few minutes later. She stood in the doorway looking at Sophia and then at me. "You are the one who helped restructure the Langford commercial project last spring," she said to me. "The one everyone said could not be salvaged." "That was my team," I said. "We figured out where the foundation was actually solid." She nodded slowly. Then she said, "My daughter needed someone who does not fold when the room gets difficult." She glanced at Sophia. It appears she found one. Sophia let out a breath that was half laugh and half something more complicated. "Did my mother just give us her blessing?" she said quietly. "Kind of," I said. The announcement from the stage was measured. A statement about a temporary leadership adjustment and a thorough internal review. No names. But the people in that ballroom were not new to how these things moved. They understood. The conversations that followed happened in low voices in the corners of the room. Daniel's absence was the loudest thing in the building. Sophia and I stood near a tall window at the back of the ballroom. Snow was falling outside in slow, heavy sheets, blurring the city lights into long, soft colors against the dark. Neither of us said anything for a while. We just stood in the quiet of what we had walked through together. "Do you regret any of it?" she asked. "Which part?" I said. "Saying yes to dinner that night," she said. "All of it." I thought about the weeks ahead, the conversations I would need to have, the people who would look at me differently in the halls, the extra proving that would come with being the person who had been in the middle of all this. I thought about all of it. "Not for a single second," I said. She turned toward me. In the light from the window, her eyes were darker and softer at the same time. "Then I should stop calling you my pretend boyfriend," she said. "What are you going to call me instead?" I asked. She stepped closer. Just one small step. But the distance between us felt entirely different after it. "My boyfriend," she said. "For real. Without any story built around it." She lifted her hand and rested her fingers lightly on my arm. "Is that all right?" she asked. I put my hands at her waist gently, giving her all the room she needed. "For me," I said, "that is more than all right." She rose on her toes and kissed me. It was not the kind of moment that asks for applause. It was warm and quiet and honest. Her hands curled in the fabric of my jacket. When we stepped apart, I pressed my forehead to hers for just a moment and breathed. "After tonight, this is not going to be simple," she said softly. "I do not want simple," I said. "I want real." She nodded against me. "Then that is what we build," she said. Weeks passed. The fallout settled the way these things always do, slowly and then all at once. Daniel was gone. The official statements did not name him, but the internal communication did. The compliance team took a floor of the building for 3 weeks. The merger moved forward on new terms, cleaner ones, with Sophia holding a formal seat on the board. Real votes, real weight. Her contract was rewritten without anything buried in it. My name was attached to some of the noise for a while. A few people in the building looked at me differently in the hallways. I let them. On a quiet Saturday several months later, I sat on my old couch in my apartment with the window going gray outside and the smell of something warm coming from the kitchen. Sophia came in from the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee, wearing my old college sweatshirt, hair loose and unbothered. She sat beside me and pressed into my side like it was the most natural thing in the world. "My parents are coming for dinner next week," she said. "Here?" I looked around at my mismatched furniture and the plant on the windowsill that was doing its absolute best to stay alive. "Here," she said, smiling. "No contracts. No agenda. Just dinner." I told them they can bring dessert if they want to feel useful. I laughed. "Are you going to introduce me the same way?" I asked. "Drop the word boyfriend and see what happens?" She set her cup down and turned toward me, tilting her face up to mine. "No," she said. "This time I am going to tell them the truth." She reached up and placed her hand flat on my chest, right over my heart. "This is Nathan," she said softly, like she was practicing. "The man who stood between me and someone who thought he could own my future. The man who chose me when choosing me was going to cost him something real." I reached into the drawer of the side table beside the couch. I had been carrying what was inside it in my jacket pocket for 3 weeks before I finally moved it there. I had been waiting for a moment that was ordinary, not staged, not built for an audience. Just us, in the plain light of an afternoon that was not trying to be anything more than what it was. I held it out to her. A simple ring. Clean lines. Nothing loud. "I am not going anywhere unless you tell me to," I said. "And I am done pretending that any part of how I feel about you is temporary. So I am asking you right here in this apartment with cold coffee and a plant in the window that refuses to give up." She stared at the ring. Then she looked at me. Her eyes filled, but she was smiling through it, wide and real and completely unguarded. "I am not going to tell you to go," she whispered. "Is that a yes?" I asked. She laughed, warm and bright and a little wet. "Yes," she said. "That is a yes." I slid the ring onto her finger. She looked at it for a moment. Then she leaned in and kissed me right there on the sagging couch in the ordinary afternoon light. And that was it. No ballroom. No cameras. No carefully chosen words for a room full of people watching. Just the 2 of us finally saying out loud the thing that had been true for longer than either of us had been willing to admit. The grandest things in life rarely happen in grand rooms. They happen in ordinary light, between 2 people who finally stopped pretending the truth was not already there. If the story stayed with you, share it with someone who needed to hear it today. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe to the channel. We tell these kinds of stories every week. Drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you are listening from right now. We read every single one.